Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my first ever pickups video for July 2020. I'm Ryan Turford, and of course, this is brand new to the channel. I've never done a pickups video before. I'm going to basically talk about all the games that I picked up in the month of July. Of course, if you like this video, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, all that good stuff. Again, if you don't like the video as well, you can dislike it as well. We're cool. Don't worry, we're cool. Of course, though, July, pretty good month for video games, actually. I was kind of surprised as to how many good releases there were this month. That being said, most of the games I played this month actually were on Xbox Game Pass. So things like Crosscode and Carry On, a lot of great games on Game Pass this month. So the pickups there this month are a little bit smaller than some other months, but at the same time, I did pick up some cool stuff this month. So let's get into it. But first, before we get into the physical releases, let's quickly talk about the digital games I picked up this month, because I did pick up a few of those. So we'll start with Ghost of Tsushima. This is on PlayStation 4, of course. It's an exclusive. It's from Sucker Punch, the makers of games like Infamous and Sly Cooper. And basically, it takes place on the island of Tsushima, and it takes place during the Mongol invasion of Tsushima itself. And basically, you play as Jin, who is essentially like a royalty in Tsushima, and basically you're a samurai and you fight on the field of battle against the Mongols during the initial invasion. However, all of the samurai are defeated, including Jin himself, and he's basically like nursed back to health, and basically needs to team up with and recruit some people to basically take down the Mongols who have basically occupied the island of Tsushima before their attack on mainland Japan. It's a really interesting and unique game because we don't really get a lot of Japanese historical games like this. A lot of times if we get Japanese historical games, a lot of times there's stuff like Dynasty Warriors or some other like weird series like that. So it was really interesting to play a game that takes place in like this era of Japan. And it's like an open world action game, very similar to something like Assassin's Creed or Middle-earth: Shadow of War. And honestly, I love Ghost of Tsushima. I think it's an amazing game. I haven't finished it yet. I'm actually pretty close to the end, even though the footage I'm showing you is from when I was in Act 2. But yeah, really, really liking the game a lot. And I can't wait to finish it. I think Sucker Punch kind of knocked it out of the park. I do have a couple quips with some of the controls, like some of the control wonkiness is not great. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where I think Sucker Punch is doing this type of game for the first time. They're no strangers to open world games. I mean, all the Infamous games were open world as well. But I think it plays very differently to those games. And I think that there were some growing pains that came along with that unfortunately hindered this experience. But I would imagine if they get another crack at it, like all that stuff's going to be ironed out in the future. And a lot of those clips too were some of the clips I had with like older Assassin's Creed games. Like sometimes I would I would get ready to do like the perfect assassination on a target. The assassination button would line up, but then my character would move like 1 pixel closer to the target, and then the assassination button would disappear. And then suddenly I was slashing the enemy, alerting the whole base, and it was a whole thing. So stuff like that happens a lot. And I think that's again, little nitpicky stuff like that kind of sets it back. So Ghost of Tsushima, highly recommended. Other game I picked up on PS4 this month is Sakura Wars. This is actually from Sega. It's a reboot of the Sakura Wars series that actually started all the way back on the Sega Saturn back in the 90s. And it's like this anime style game where basically you're fending off demons with these mechs. Basically, it's like a steampunk version of like 1930s Japan, essentially, is how I would throw it out there. And it's really cool. I really like that game. I mean, I'm new to the Sakura Wars series because obviously we haven't really gotten too many of the games in the West, especially because, again, the series originated on Saturn, but we didn't even see our very first release of the series until the Wii version, Sakura Wars So Long My Love, which I never played on the Wii, or we'll get to that in a little bit because you might see it in this pile here. And I think that Sakura Wars on PS4, though, I really liked it. I mean, there were some criticisms of the game with there's like some weird like dating aspects, but I think that's actually been part of the series since the beginning. And I don't think that that's too weird, especially if you kind of know the history of the Sakura Wars series itself. It's not turn-based. It is like an action game. Basically, it's almost placed like a Musou. in a way where you're dealing with tons of enemies. There's lots of combos and stuff like that. And I think that it was really fun to play. It got a little grindy towards the end, but overall, it was just a really fun time. I really enjoyed my time with Sakura Wars, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I thought it was really fun and a great pickup. Again, it came out a couple months ago, and I mixed it when it came out. So I was glad to pick it up when it was on sale. And yeah, really, really fun game. And last digital download I wanted to talk about is Bloodstaind, Curse of the Moon 2. I picked it up on Xbox One, but it's available on all the platforms itself. It's basically a 2D return to basically the original style of the original NES Castlevania games, specifically Castlevania 3. It's very similar to that game, and it's actually a sequel to a game that came out a couple years ago, which was part of the Kickstarter rewards for Bloodstaind, Ritual of the Night. And this time around, what they decided to do is they gave you three new characters to go along with Zangetsu, because Zangetsu is the one returning character from the first Curse of the Moon. So you've got Dominique, who's basically like a spear user, as well as you've got a gun wielder, as well as a corgi that drives a train mech, steampunk mech, that is. And it's a really fun game. Again, if you like the NES Castlevania games, I mean, you're going to be right at home with Bloodstaind, Curse of the Moon 2, especially if you like the first one as well. I mean, this is a no-brainer. Plus, you get to unlock the original 3 characters later on in the story, and basically play through all the levels with like 8 different characters. Plus, there's 2-player co-op as well. So if you've got a buddy, you can actually play 2-player co-op. And I haven't had a chance to play the co-op yet specifically, so I don't know how that plays, but Bloodstaind, Curse of the Moon 2, I really loved it. It is a bit harder than the first game, I will say, so if you did have trouble with the first Curse of the Moon, just be warned going into Curse of the Moon 2 that it is a little bit harder, so you should maybe actually play Curse of the Moon 1 first and make sure you can get through that before playing the second one, because it will test your patience, especially if you play it on veteran difficulty or even the new difficulty that they just added, which basically furthers the knockback, makes you take a ton of damage, and if you lose any of your characters, you lose a life. So really interesting stuff with that game, and I'm so happy that they decided to do a sequel to Curse of the Moon. I think it was fantastic. It was almost better than Ritual of the Night, actually, which is funny enough because it was kind of the side thing that was coming out alongside of it and part of its Kickstarter. But I'm glad to see that it got a sequel. And Indie Creates does amazing work. Same with the Blaster Master Zero series, the Mega Man Zero series. They always do amazing 2D NES style games, and I can't wait to see actually what Indie Creates is up to next. I think they've probably got some interesting projects in the works. And Bloodstaind, Curse of the Moon 2 is incredible. You guys got to check it out. So let's get into the pile of games here that I've got in front of me. That is a little bit harder to see on camera. Again, I'm still kind of working out the setup here. And it's just one of those things. Well, we'll get it right next month, probably. So let's start with the NES and Super Famicom games, as well as the Game Boy game, because I actually picked up Sailor Moon R, which, again, the video that I did on this game, the first impressions video, is up. So you can definitely go watch kind of my thoughts on this. Really fun beat-em-up game. More fun than I was actually expecting, and it's probably not as good as the Genesis or the arcade versions, which, again, I haven't played. That's just what I've heard. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. It was a lot of fun. But the other game that goes along with this is actually the game in this Game Boy case, which is Sailor Moon R for the Game Boy, which is actually the Game Boy counterpart to this. It's basically also a side-scrolling game. It's not a beat-em-up so much as almost like a action, like a side-scrolling platforming shooting game. Very similar to something like Mega Man, although, again, it is actually very simplified. It's actually a pretty easy game. I could actually usually beat it in 1 or 2 sittings, especially like if it's only like half an hour long, I think. It's a pretty short game. There's also like almost like an RPG, like town exploration aspect of it, to it as well. But unfortunately, this is in Japanese and I can't read that part of it. So it's just one of those things where maybe I'll look for a translation patch for the game and maybe play it on my Retron 5 because I do have a Retron 5. I can do that. I specifically have one just for the purpose of playing Japanese games like this. So I might check that out at some point and kind of give my thoughts about that. But overall, really fun Game Boy game. Again, it's not too over the top or crazy. It's just a fun kind of like half an hour, 45 minutes of your time. And you get to play as all 5 of the Sailor Scouts, again, from Sailor Moon R. And yeah, I thought it was pretty fun. But again, it's not like a deep engrossing experience or anything like that. So next up, I have a game here that we actually rented when I was a kid. I used to love G.I. Joe. The G.I. Joe franchise was synonymous with my time in the 80s as a child. And of course, here we've got G.I. Joe, the Atlantis Factor. This is from Capcom. Back in Capcom's heyday, where they made a ton of amazing games, this is kind of a mix between Bionic Commando and just other games like Mega Man or Darkwing Duck or other Capcom run and gun kind of platforming shooting games. You play as General Hawk to start with, but you recruit other members of the G.I. Joe faction that have basically been captured by Cobra. So you get to rescue people like Snake Eyes, as well as other G.I. Joe characters. And then basically you can choose which characters you want to bring into battle with you after you've recruited them. And they each have like different abilities and you can switch to them as you play. So like, for example, Wetsuit can basically go through water pretty quickly, and he's better for like some of the water levels versus again, Snake Eyes is like more agile than General Hawk, but he can't shoot. He doesn't have a gun or anything like that. So really fun and interesting game on the NES. G.I. Joe, the Atlantis Factor. I haven't picked up the original G.I. Joe game, which I can't remember who makes that game, but it's not Capcom. It's another company. I've heard a lot of really good things about that one, and I've just never played it. So, but the Atlantis Factor, though, if you've never played this, you got to check it out, especially if you're a G.I. Joe fan. But more so, it's just a really fun Capcom NES game that I know just not a lot of people really talk about. It's one of those games that I think is flown under the radar, partially because it's a licensed game and everyone kind of associates like older licensed games as being bad. But G.I. Joe is one of the good ones. You got to check it out. So next up, I got a couple physical PS4 games to talk about this month. We're going to start with Ys Memories of Celceta. This is the Timeless Adventure Edition. Ys Memories of Celceta is actually a port of a Vita game, but they basically ported it to HD. They HDified it in a way to run on the PS4. You can definitely tell, though, it's a port of a PS Vita game because of the way the menus are kind of laid up. The text is really big, and like the text boxes take up like half the screen. So there is some of that stuff associated with it. So you can definitely tell it was made for the Vita, and they didn't really tweak the interface too much. They tweaked it a little bit because I did play this on the Vita, but I just started playing the PS4 version a couple days ago, and overall, it's a fun action RPG. Again, nothing too crazy or anything like that. I wouldn't say that I'm over the moon with this game or anything like that, but it's a fun action RPG if you're looking for something a little bit different. If you like the Ys games as well, I think this is a no-brainer, especially playing it on the console version. And the Timeless Adventure Edition specifically comes with a soundtrack as well as some art cards. And I actually got this pretty cheap on Amazon. So definitely, if you're interested in this at all, I think it's still in stock if you want to pick one up. And again, it's on sale all the time. So definitely check out Ys Memories of Celceta. I will say, though, if you played the Vita version, I don't think there's that much new. There, as far as I know, there isn't any new content. It doesn't mention it on the box, and I haven't heard of any new additional content in this particular version, nor did I find any in like the time I've played with it. But I'm also not very far. It's a game I want to revisit, though, after I'm kind of done the Fairy Tail review, which will be up on Thursday, or as well after I'm finished Ghost of Tsushima. So probably next week, I'm going to dive into this a little bit more, and I'm kind of curious to see if they've added anything else to the game. So next up, this is a game that I missed back in March when it came out, because it came out just at a really crazy time, because we had stuff like Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Doom Eternal and a whole bunch of games in March that I just unfortunately couldn't pick up. Granblue Fantasy Versus when that came out. This is actually from Arc System Works and Xseed. Funny enough, Xseed actually published this and Ys. And Granblue Fantasy Versus is actually like probably what I would consider like the most beginner-friendly Arc System Works games. Of course, Arc System Works makes incredible fighting games, from Guilty Gear to BlazBlue to Persona 4 Arena to all kinds of amazing fighting games. Dragon Ball FighterZ, of course. And Dragon Ball FighterZ already was a pretty accessible game, but I think Granblue Fantasy Versus is actually even more accessible than that game, especially because what they've done with the special moves in this game is you can actually map them to the R1 button. So if you hold down R1 and then press like square or triangle or circle, you'll actually perform one of the special moves rather than having to do the quarter circle combination that's associated with it. Really interesting design. It's got a great tutorial for anyone new to fighting games as well. Honestly, if you want to get into a Arc System Works game, after and you've played Dragon Ball Fighters, definitely Granblue Fantasy Versus is a fun game. Also has a pretty interesting campaign as well. Arc System Works also does a lot of really interesting campaigns for their games, and with Granblue Fantasy Versus, they do this like side-scrolling beat 'em up game. It's actually kind of similar to, believe it or not, something like Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. Which again is not high praise because that game's not very good, but it's done in a much better way where you don't have to press a button to like turn the other way to attack enemies who are attacking behind you. It actually works pretty well. Like, I think that they did a pretty good job with the campaign, and they did this because Granblue Fantasy is a mobile game, and a lot of casual players, or at least that's just what they identified as the audience for Granblue Fantasy, are going to probably pick this up for the first time, and they want to make it obviously as beginner friendly as possible. So yeah, it's just a really, really cool game. This version of the game, of course, is the special edition. It comes with a soundtrack, an art book, as well as a whole bunch of like DLC stuff. So yeah, I think I also got this pretty cheap on Amazon as well, and I think it also goes on sale all the time, like Ease. So if you're interested in this version as well, definitely check it out. I see them all the time on Amazon, and they're actually pretty cheap now. So I'm glad that I picked it up. So next up, the next couple games that I picked up were actually from a local store here in Toronto that I actually like to support. Of course, it's scary outside. I'm not going outside to go to these stores. They have a website, and I basically order the games from them. They come to my house because I like to support my local game store, but it is, again, 2020, and it's tough to go outside. But I picked up some games that I've wanted to pick up for a while that I've heard great things about, but I've never played, and you can fully expect that there will be first impression videos of each one of these games. So I'm excited to play them for the first time for you guys. So first up, we've got Ultimate Spider-Man on the original Xbox. Basically, in this game, you play as Spider-Man in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, which is basically when they tried to reboot all of the Marvel brands under the Ultimate banner after the MCU started. Basically, you play as Peter Parker, and you basically have to fight all kinds of classic Spider-Man villains. But you also, to switch things up, have to play as Venom in some of the levels as well. Although I heard he's like kind of big and bulky. But one of the things that really turned me on about this game in particular is it's got this really cool cel-shaded art style to it, and I think it looks really, really, really cool. So I'm excited to check this out. This is an Activision game back when they had the Spider-Man license. And yeah, I'm really excited to check this out for the first time. It's a game I've wanted for a long time on original Xbox. It's just one of those things where I would be like, oh, I'll just pick it up next month. And I never eventually did until I saw it for $10. So I decided to pick it up, and yeah, complete copy, really interesting looking game, and I can't wait to play it. So next up, this is actually a game that I heard about from watching other YouTube channels. I didn't even know this game existed on the Wii, and I've started picking up some more obscure Wii games because I am playing them on Wii U. So they do display pretty well on modern TVs. This, of course, is Dragon Ball: The Revenge of King Piccolo. This is basically takes place in the Dragon Ball franchise time frame, and it's almost like a open world beat 'em up style game. It's not a fighting game, which is very different from other Dragon Ball games. From what I've seen of other people playing this game, it kind of reminds me almost like a brawler mixed with like RPG elements. So I'm really excited to check this out. Again, I haven't really played it or anything like that. I've just heard really good things about it. And again, it was pretty cheap, so I decided to pick it up and give it a try. I really like Dragon Ball. I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. And especially old Dragon Ball, like I like kind of the more simple times in Dragon Ball. And yeah, I'm really excited to check this one out. It looks cool, looks fun, and I've heard great things about it. So again, look for first impressions of this down the road. And last but not least, I alluded to it before when talking about Sakura Wars. I did pick up Sakura Wars So Long, My Love. This is on the Wii as well. It's a complete copy of the game. This is actually a pretty pricey game, but actually I got it from an eBay auction for actually a really good price, much lower than what it normally goes for. Basically, this is a prequel, or it takes place before the newer Sakura Wars game. Basically, it takes place in New York. There's like the New York City Review, which is basically their defense force against demons that attack New York City. And yeah, really interesting game. Again, Sakura Wars PS4 game really inspired me to get more into this franchise and learn more about it. And unfortunately, like I mentioned before, this was the first game in the series that got localized in North America. And it's one of two. I mean, unless of course you want to play as some of the characters in Project Cross Zone, because Sega did lend their characters to that game. That's it. Unfortunately, you don't really have a lot of other options. And this game actually got a pretty limited release because it was published by NIS as opposed to Sega, which unfortunately, again, NIS games back in the day just had really low print runs. And they're kind of like Atlas in that way as well, where they just couldn't afford to have a bajillion copies of these games kind of sit on the shelf. Especially a game like this is kind of a niche game. I know a lot of people haven't really heard of this series because, again, this was like their introduction to the series in North America. But again, I'm really interested to check this out. I really love the PS4 version of Sakura Wars, and I'm really interested to play this on a first impressions video in the future. So that's it. Those are all the games that I picked up in July 2020. Again, some great games overall. It wasn't a ton of them, and also just Game Pass this month was so good. So many great games on Game Pass as well, and I've mostly been playing those this month. And also August as well is going to be a great month for Game Pass. We've got Battletoads, we've got Tell Me Why, we've got Wasteland 3. I think it's going to be another one of those months where my next biggest video is probably going to be pretty short, but we've got stuff like Madden and PGA and some other games coming out this month that I'm pretty excited about. So definitely look out for those. On the first Monday of each month, I do a pickups video like this. And yeah, let me know in the comments below if you like this pickups video. What do you think about some of these games? Let me know as well, because again, a lot of these games I haven't even played yet. I haven't even touched any of these three games here. I'm going to be playing them for first impressions. So I'd love to know what you think. Again, leave me a comment below telling me what you think. And like I said, if you like this video, subscribe to this channel for all the new videos that are coming up. Again, only my Friday video is going to be consistent, as well as the pickups videos every month. So obviously you want to be subscribed to know when everything goes live. So that's it for my pickups video for July 2020. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you have an amazing day.